So first of all, we had a list of chosen words that we were able to pick, and the word that I chose was unseen. So this is just my kind of cover page where I put my contents. I began by doing some initial ideas based on the word that I had been given. And then I did some photographer research into the main idea that I wanted to do, which first began on the binoculars theme. So if you don't know, for the exam unit, they'll usually give you 2 or 3 photographers, which you're able to go and look at in your own free time. But for each kind of prompt word, they give you a few photographers. And then I recreated these pictures. They're not that great though. And obviously a contact sheet. Then I kind of moved on to a different theme. I wanted to look at disembodiment, and I looked at the male gaze, things like that. This was mainly from my media A level. I kind of stole this from. If you've watched my previous video where I spoke about my personal investigation, then you'll see like the work is of a much higher quality. For this component, it was very much rushed and I wasn't happy with my work, but I still kind of managed to get a star. And then I went to an exhibition. Going to exhibitions is a really good thing to do for your projects. And more specifically now, I was focusing on the female gaze. And I did a response photo shoot to this woman here. And then I moved on to photograms. And then I moved on to chemograms. I tried to do as much experimentation as possible. So these are my chemograms. And then I wanted to move on to macro photography. This kind of links to the unseen because it was like you can only see a certain part of the image. That's kind of how I justified it. Then I wanted to move on to architecture because I liked the kind of theme of the shapes and textures of the fruits, but I wanted to do this with architecture. Except I did it so like the images were cropped out at the sides. Then I moved on to using tracing paper to distort images. So I traced over these images here. And then I kind of overlaid them in Photoshop. Next, we're moving on to more physical, so folded paper distortion. Again, these images were not great. And then I moved on to this photographer who was also, I think, recommended in the booklet for the exam board. And this woman actually explores photography with backgrounds, but she did these like pictures in lockdown. I really liked this idea, so I recreated this in my own style. I did some research. And then I recreated these images. And my final photographs are here. Then I decided to include some unsuccessful photographs just because I thought it would still be beneficial to show which ones didn't quite work out well and why. Did an evaluation. And now we're moving on to camera lens manipulation. So I made these cardboard cutouts for my camera lens. And I went to the woods and I took some pictures. Next, we're moving on to, I think, the last recommended photographer who took pictures by the beach. And I went to the beach in Cardiff and I took some pictures there. And I kind of overlaid her pictures onto mine, if that makes sense. And now we're moving on to eye distortion. I see. From the camera lens manipulation, I kind of like that circular idea with the vignette, so I decided to do eye distortion. And these are my edits, which I'm actually really happy with. I quite like these pictures, especially the one on the right here. More camera manipulation. I really like these ones as well. And now we're moving on to still life imagery. So this is like a bit more like going into distortion and that kind of topic, which kind of links to unseen as well. So yeah, so I like this idea of the fruits behind the glasses. So I did some photographer research. And then I recreated this style. I spent a lot of time on this photo shoot, to be honest. For the backdrop, I actually just used black cards from the stationery store and put them on my wall and on my desk. And these were my images that I created. I was quite happy with this photo shoot. Yeah, you can see here how I kind of did the whole setup. Then I moved on to scanography, which I have actually already experimented with in my personal investigation. It's essentially just using a printer to distort. And I did this with my hands, my face, as you can see. And then moving forward, I think I said I wanted to move on to this photographer who actually distorts faces as well. And I did some responses to his. So these are my pictures. And next we're doing double exposure research because some of his pictures were similar to that style. Then we did some edits. Not so happy with this one. More pictures from that shoot. And now I'm just thinking about what I want to move on to my final piece. I really wanted to do these kind of images here, so continuing that theme with distortion. And we were told to make rationale sheets, so this essentially just collates all of the photographs you've taken so far, all your favourite ones or your best ones that you think link together, that will give you some idea of what you want to do for your final piece. And then I did final piece planning here, and photographic methods. And then I did an entire plan of everything I would need, and I kind of made so we had 3 days, I think it was a 3-day exam, or maybe 2, and we had all those hours in a day. I think we had like 5 hours a day for 3 days, so 15-hour exam, and we weren't on our phones or anything, it was all like hush hush, no one was allowed to speak. But during that time we kind of made our entire final piece. So I'm going to move on to the final piece PowerPoint now, because that kind of shows this was everything that I completed in those 15 hours. Obviously I took the photographs before, that's the only thing we were allowed to do. We had to edit these images in the exam. So this was my plan, and then these are my images that I took. And these are the images I chose to take forward that I thought were most powerful. And I kind of went into detail to each picture to show what I wanted to do. And then I physically distorted these images by overlaying them with the materials I had used. So for example, the string, where I put string, I actually put real string on top. Same with the cling film, things like that. For the zip, it took many tries to get it perfect, so that's what you can see here. And then my idea to kind of display them was like a folding kind of piece of card almost, and double-sided. So I created this booklet, and then I went to the studio and took some pictures. And this is my final piece. And I just added slides with my final pictures. So there were 6 of them. And yeah, that's everything.